Okay, so I am here with Jonathan Wysocki. Oh, boom! Oh man, some days I just butcher names, and today I've knocked it out the park twice. Outstanding. Okay, so yeah, I'm here with Jonathan to talk about Dramarama, which was one of the great films that played at this year's BFI Flare Festival. And I forget what, because I remember going through the films. It's just like, I always have a weird thing about this because I don't like knowing too much about a film before I watch it, because I don't want to be biased in any way. I like to be surprised and not, you know what I mean, be prejudgment of, okay, so it's gonna be a kid's film. Let's watch, and you'd be like, oh, it's not a kid's film. Okay, oh, this is fun. You know what I mean? Sometimes you do that. I remember watching the friggin' trailer to, I think it was Rush Hour 2, and thinking, oh my God, this is so funny. This is going to be hilarious. And then watching it and realizing, oh, they put the jokes in the trailer. There was only four jokes.
Bait and switch, right?
Oh, it was so bad. But then I discovered, which blew my mind, right, that directors don't, for the most part, make their own trailers, which I didn't know. Up until a certain point, I was oblivious to that fact, right? Because you just assume, like the things that you would assume as a little kid watching films, that a director, you know what I mean, they're doing the trailer, they're agreeing on the marketing and the branding, all of that stuff. It's because it's their film, it's their vision. So why wouldn't they? And then you find out, no, it doesn't work like that. It's just like, what is happening? This is the upside down.
Yeah, I think if you're really powerful, you get that control.
Oh yeah, Jonathan Nolan is getting, yes. He's getting that.
Yeah. But generally, no, it's out of your hands, and yeah, they do whatever they want with it once they have it. So
yeah, which I think was one of the big issues for David Ayer with the Suicide Squad, because the way the trailer came out, I mean, especially you're using Seven Nation Army, White Stripes, you had this big trailer, boom, 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 da-da-da-da, and everyone's just like, oh my God, this looks great. And then just the tone of the film is completely different to the film itself. And then you find out all the other stuff that was going on. But it's just like, it baffles me that studios still haven't, just clocked on them and like, yeah, let's just let the directors make the trailers.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, even the the editor, obviously, of the film is not the editor of the trailer. And
yeah,
it's definitely its own art form. Like, I do have appreciation for people who do it really well.
Yes,
because they can kind of create associations in making the trailer that you would never think of, because the film so well, linearly, that they're able to take this piece of dialogue and this piece of dialogue and put it together in a way that works for the trailer, but doesn't actually happen that way in the film. But yeah, I do feel like sometimes there's a tone issue where it's like the trailer is this tone and the film is not that tone. or they give too much away. I hate that too.
God. Oh, the amount of times a big reveal is spoiled from a trailer. Like, I didn't watch the trailer first. I went and watched Us. Yeah, Us. That is the film, isn't it? The Jason Peele. Yes. Not Jason Peele. It's something Peele.
Brian? Oh my gosh, why are you?
No, not Brian. Definitely not Brian. Oh no. Peele. Jordan.
Thank you. I was like, Keen Peele. Wow.
But yeah, I didn't watch the trailer, so I went in and I watched the film and I was blown away by the film. I loved the
Right.
film. But I then, because, you know, when you're putting it on the website and the real, so I have to get the trailer, the website, all those links and stuff like that. So I got the link for the trailer, and I was just like, for some reason, I was like, oh, let's just see the trailer. And I just thought, there's a bit in the trailer. I guess it's 2 years old now.
Yeah,
I think
2 years
most
ago,
people
yeah.
probably would have seen. So I think you could talk about it without, you know, spoilers, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
but there's the whole mirror bit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I think if you have her near the mirror or anything like that, you're putting people on the path to what happens. You know what I mean? It's like once you see that visual, you can make an assumption. If you then see fear on the face or anything. So the fact that they did that in the trailer, I'm like, what are you doing? You've walked people basically up to the door, right? If I'd seen that, I would have gone, hold on, is it? You know what I mean? But not seeing the trailer, when that happened, I was just like, no. Oh my God.
Right.
So yeah, it was just like, you know what I mean? But I just realized I don't even know what happened here. We're talking about trailers. I mean, we're just talking about your damn film. I just don't even know what happened. This is crazy. But that was it. Yes. Because I'm like, I don't watch or read, you know what I mean? I take a quick glance over stuff and think, yeah, okay, I'll look at that. And so with yours, I remember it was just, I think what grabbed me was, you know what I mean, like everyone just standing there looking, and it had a whodunit kind of feel to it. And I loved, you know, Hercule Poirot. Hercule Poirot as a kid growing up. Well, it's weird because it's just like I'd go to the library, and the only books really that were large print and I could actually read were Miss Marple and Hercule Poirot. So I read all of those books. You know what I mean? And which was probably annoying because you walk around, thank you, mon ami. You know what I mean? I mean, like, what the fuck are you talking about? But yeah, I mean, that grabbed me about your film. And so I was like, oh, let me give this a look. And so I did. But yeah, basically, I watched your film. It took me all this time just to say, yeah, I watched it.
Well, thank you. And thank you for going in without any preconceived ideas.
Yeah, so, you know, as I said, like getting all the information on, I came across, it was a Kickstarter. You use Kickstarter to help fund it, which is always an interesting thing to see how people get their funding and everything. Like, why Kickstarter? What made you go down that route?
Well, I had quite a few friends who had made their first features, and a lot of them were actually you know, something with LGBTQ content. And, you know, they would shop it around to production companies and they get no. And then finally they just turned to Kickstarter to get the whole ball rolling. And I watched this happen with one friend and then another friend and another friend and another friend. And finally I was like, okay, I just have to do this. It's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be kind of scary because, you know, it's an all or nothing kind of campaign. Either you raise it and you get it, or, you know, you don't raise the amount you say you're going to and you get nothing. You get $0. And yeah, so I just followed in their footsteps, and it ended up getting the film greenlit. I was able to get, you know, the rest of the investors on board because the Kickstarter campaign was successful. And then, you know, a couple months after that, we were shooting the movie. So it was the other nice thing about Kickstarter is that you kind of get your first chunk of an audience that's interested in your movie right up before it even is made, you know, and they kind of, because they feel very invested in the project, they are sort of your core audience, and you start to build people from that point. And in this day and age, when there's so much content and there's so many things that you can watch in so many places, it's kind of a nice way to start sort of building your audience, so that you actually have people that know about your film and are tracking it and are sort of following it.
Yeah. So with that, right, and the whole it's either a go or not, does it force you to either start at a low cost and then up it once you've met that, or do you just go, no, I'm just going to say this amount and let's see what happens?
Yeah, so you can always increase what you're trying to raise, but you can't decrease it. once it started, they don't allow you to decrease it. So I had to do some math based off of what I thought I could achieve, and then not go over that in case I fell short. Yeah. So yeah, that's sort of how I set the bar that I set. And then once that campaign was done, you have hundreds of people who are now waiting for you to make this movie. And so it lights a fire under everything in a good way. It's like, it's not theoretical anymore. It's all of a sudden, it's like, oh no, you have to figure out how to make this movie. And it was easier to bring the rest of the funding on board, because the successful Kickstarter was kind of like a proof of concept. People were like, oh, okay, this thing has legs, it's running, it's happening, and people are excited about it. I'm willing to invest in this project.
Yeah, but you can already show an interest. You can be like, well, we know this amount of people want to see it, right? And this amount of people will pay this amount for the DVD or the Blu-ray or the whatever. So yeah, but does it force you then to kind of make content specific for them to show the progress? Like, does it kind of put you in a bit of a bind to be like, oh God, gotta do the Kickstarter video in a second. Okay, it's that time again, guys. Get together. Hey, Kickstarter crew, how are you?
Right. Yeah, I actually enjoy doing the updates, because I try not to have too many of them, because I feel like too many is annoying. But I whenever there's news, something exciting, I do an update, and I feel like people are usually really appreciative of it, because they don't want after they've donated, they don't want me to fall into a black hole, and they're like, what, why did I donate to that thing? It seems to have disappeared off the planet. So yeah, I don't mind the updates. I don't do videos, so I don't put that much effort into them. I phone it in a little bit. I'll put some pictures though. I'll put some pictures. But yeah, no, I try to keep them abreast, without spamming them every, couple of weeks with every little tiny thing that could be happening with the film.
So where did this idea come from? Right? Because it felt a little, I kind of said, I feel I kind of aligned it to John Hughes, those classic 16 Candles and the whatnot, the Breakfast Club and those sort of films. It kind of had that kind of aesthetic, that kind of feel.
Yeah, thank you.
But not being a clone of, what I mean? But so how did it come together? Like, how did you kind of think, this is what I want this to be?
Yeah, that's a very high compliment. So thank you for that, John Hughes shout out. So this is a semi-autobiographical film. It started with me rereading my high school diary, which was horrifying. I was like cringing all the way through it. But there were elements there about growing up, in a very sort of religious, conservative, suburban environment, where I was closeted, and my friends were closeted, and yet we had this outlet that was theater, which was this we were all very, very theatrical, into drama, and sort of expressed ourselves and got all of our sort of repression and whatnot out through the improvisation and the silliness and the fun of drama. And I thought there was something interesting there that could make a good coming of age film that I hadn't really seen before, which is instead of the kids rushing towards adulthood and being super interested in losing their virginity and getting drunk and trying to be as adult as possible, to have this group of kids who were really kind of afraid of leaving the nest in many ways. So I sat down and I kind of put fact and fiction into a blender, and I definitely was very interested in containing it to one location and one night, because I feel like there are some really great coming of age films that do that. Obviously, you mentioned Breakfast Club is a great one, where it's basically five teenagers in a library, and what drama comes from that. And American Graffiti is another one where it's one night, it's the last night before everybody goes off, before everybody is ending their summer and beginning the fall. And so I felt like there were sort of interesting templates for coming of age films that had those kind of restrictions in terms of time and place. And yeah, I just started writing based off of all those ideas.
And because I thought one thing that was very interesting and I liked about this film was it wasn't, now for me, right, this is what it kind of, I got from it, but it wasn't so much about the coming out, right? Because we've seen a lot of films that are, the like, and then there's the big announcement and be like, hey guys, and you'd be like, no, be like, yeah, be like, hey, be like, like, that's a big thing. But this wasn't so much that, right? It was more about these links that bind us all, and that doesn't really matter. Right? Like, there's these assumptions that we make. We're like, oh, if people know this, they might not talk to me. But it's just like, you know what? Everyone's scared. Everyone's scared about changing and growing up. But what really matters is just this group, right? That was the thing. And I was like, that's cool, right? Because I think all of these emotions, yeah, like whether you're straight or gay or, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Because we all have these different concerns, right? But it's just, what you want to know is, are my buddies still going to be my buddies? And that seemed to be like the real thrust of the thing. And I liked it. It just didn't go that well-trodden route. It became this different thing,
Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I feel like, part of that decision was just to be true to my own past, that, I definitely did not come out in the early 90s, because it was not safe and nobody else was doing it in high school. And so I felt like that sort of piece of history was important to show, that it wasn't maybe as easy back then as it is now. And then I also really wanted there to be a film where, you know, the character doesn't come out and it's okay because he's just not ready, you know. He's not ready, his environment is not, you know, the best environment, and you know he's going to be okay, and you know he's going to eventually come out, but it's just not going to happen now. And I feel like I kind of wanted there to be a film where you know where that was someone's journey, because I think, you know, it is still hard for some people to come out, and I felt like it would be nice to have a template where they could watch someone struggle and then and then, you know, be okay with not doing that. And then, you know, thirdly, to your point, I do feel like there is something just about being on the cusp of change that is a universal experience, whether, again, you're gay or straight or whatnot. And, you know, there's an argument to be made that all of the characters are in the closet in some way, shape, or form in this movie, in terms of what they're hiding from each other, what they're, you know, in denial about, or what they are afraid of expressing. And I thought that was kind of a funny equalizer in some ways, is to have everybody be, you know, have a secret about themselves and about whether or not they were going to reveal that secret.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? There was something with everyone, really, you know, that they weren't telling. I think one of the craziest things had to be, oh my gosh, it's Oscar's situation, right? Because it's just like, but you're doing the thing that you wanted to do. Like, however you want to dress it up, right? You're doing that thing. So who cares?
Right.
Like, who really cares? Like, I don't know. Like, in the UK, we don't have like the major, minor, that, you know, you go do your degree, or, you know, that's just it. Right. So maybe it's a little bit different, but does it really matter what the major is over the minor?
It doesn't, because I mean, you can even change it when you once you're in uni, you can change your mind and go into a different major. And so, yeah, his sort of like, the world is ending, how can I go on crisis is, you know, it's very much rooted in the emotions of what it's like when you're that age, when you feel like the world is ending because one thing doesn't go your way, you know.
And it was good as well, right? Because where, I don't know, you could look at the film and think Jean is kind of the victim, right? It's about Jean, and like, poor Jean and all of this stuff. There's a bit at the end where Jean's a bit of an arsehole, yes. Right? Because he didn't have to say that shit. He just threw his friend under the bus. I'm speaking to your mom, and but it was like, good damn, Jean. Yo, what are you doing, man? So it was like, you know, because I think one great thing, for sometimes, right, you have films and there's the good guy, the bad guy, and the hero, the heroine, right? But it's gray area. That's life. It's great. Like, we could all say shitty things, but it doesn't make us bad people. So, like, the fact that this stuff is going on, and then, you know, there's these arguments, but it's just like, this is what people, this is what friends do, right? It was nice to have those moments, because it kind of, you know, brought that home. Like, it didn't make this that cookie cutter film. You know what I mean? It wasn't that. It was more real, and that was great.
Thank you. Yeah. It's funny because, again, some of that is just coming from rereading that diary and seeing how often someone was mad at somebody else. And I forgot, you know, I don't remember any of that stuff, like, because it was all water under the bridge eventually. But like, in the moment, it's like, oh, so-and-so is not speaking to so-and-so. and it's some petty something that, you know, happened at the time. And again, it's funny how you forget about that, because, you know, you I think maybe sometimes we look back on being a teenager, and we might sort of see it in a more nostalgic factor than all of the emotions that we actually had, which, you know, someone says one thing and you're like, I'm not speaking to that person anymore. And then, you know, 48 hours later, you're friends with them again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely felt like putting that in was it felt more real to life in terms of what it is when you have those really intense friendships at that age, that, you know, have ups but also downs.
Yeah. Like, how did you get the cast? Because it was a great cast. And then you see like, oh, they're all on like TV shows and all of this. It would be like, yo, how did you get them, you know what I mean, to be able to shoot this when they're already got these busy schedules? Like, how did it all come together?
I lucked out. I mean, I had these casting directors here in Los Angeles, and they saw hundreds of young people for the roles, for the 6 roles. And you know, they were able to bring in like really, really good actors, and I was able to choose the best of the best. And they all, you know, there was one person who had a conflict, and so we actually pushed the entire shoot a week in order to accommodate her. But the one thing I couldn't do, because we didn't have the money or the time, is I couldn't chemistry cast them, where you bring them in together so you can see how they work together.
Yeah.
And so I had to in my mind imagine what they would be like together. And it wasn't until the costume fitting that they actually met each other.
So they, on that first day, they could be like, oh no, not
yeah.
You'd be like, what have I done? Yeah. Oh my god.
Exactly. You're supposed to be best friends. Please pretend.
They're my nemesis. I vowed never to work a scene with them again.
Yeah, no, so I was biting my nails about that. And luckily they got along like gangbusters, to the extent where they are actually really close still now, and they see each other all the time, and they've kind of become like the friend group in the movie, which blows my mind.
Yeah, I saw like a few of them got podcasts together or some crazy thing. I think I saw in the Instagram, and it was just like, that's so nice. Like, I don't know. I always like it, right, when you see like a director and a crew, and they're using the same people over and over again, but you think, they're buddies, man. That's nice.
Yes. Oh,
like
yeah.
when you see people all like palling it up on the screen, it's nice to know that, that's not that, it's not really fake. They're buddies in real, like finding out that JD and Turk are really great friends in real life. You're like, awesome.
Yeah.
So it's nice to kind of see that like these guys still like hang out and everything.
Oh yeah, no, it's wonderful. And I am definitely a filmmaker. It would be a dream come true if I can keep working with the same cast and crew, because I do feel like there's just something, it's like a family, you know, when it works well together like that. And you know, that positive vibe is not always guaranteed when you're making a movie. So I really lucked out on this project.
Yeah, no, it just worked, right? So what was the the decision to start the way you did? Because you start with the whole costume party and everything like that. So like, why do you think, okay, this is how we're gonna jump into this story?
Sure, yeah, I definitely wanted to you know, because these were drama kids, I wanted to sort of introduce them as they would want to be introduced in their in their sort of fantasy drama world, where they're all playing these, you know, over the top characters, and they're in costume, and then like as the film goes on, you start to watch these layers being shed, and you start to see the real people underneath all of these theatrics. And so I really liked the idea of, it's almost like they're all wearing a mask in the beginning, and then, you know, you start to sort of see behind the actual mask and see who these people really are, and what they're afraid of, and what they desire, and, you know, their hopes and dreams and whatnot. But that starting in their sort of idealized play fantasy world was something that was just interesting to me, in terms of just throwing you into their sort of Victorian murder mystery party, which, you know, I think is probably somewhat disorienting for some people. They're like, what is going on with especially if you did not grow up in a drama, in a sort of drama environment like that. Yeah, I just thought it would be fun to sort of open the film like that, and then sort of have, like an onion, have the layers be peeled away.
It does kind of let you know who they are, without having to go, okay, so we're going to meet 5 kids and they're big into drama club, right? You don't have to say that, because you've opened it up like this, right? But did you let them choose those costumes? Did you be like, who do you want to go as? Or were you like, you're going as this? Be like, oh man, I don't want to be that.
It was definitely scripted, so they did not have a choice.
Always a dictatorship.
Yes.
How many days did the shoot take?
It was pretty fast. It was 16 and a half days. Yeah.
Okay.
So 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Yeah.
And what was like the hardest scene to shoot for you?
You know, the hardest scene was actually the scene where JD is kind of grilling them all and gives them all the word that describes them, in their living room. And it's because, you know, it was 6 characters, and it was a lot of dialogue. I think it was 7 or 8 pages, and I had to shoot that entire thing in one day. And you know, covering 6 people and and all of the eye lines and all the directions, it was a lot. Like it was really, and the choreography, the blocking and everything, it was a lot to do in one day. So that was hard. And then I would say the second hard thing was actually the pool scene, because even though we shot in the middle of summer and it was unbelievably hot during the day, it got pretty cool at nighttime. And those actors were not having a good time in that pool. After hours and hours of being in this cold pool, it was not a pleasant experience. So I felt badly every time. I'd be like, I'm sorry, you have to get in the pool again. We need another angle on what's happening here. And you have to look like it's fun and it's summer.
And it's not like the happiest of scenes either.
No.
Yeah, so it's just a bit like, oh, so I have to go back in and get shamed again, Jonathan?
Yes. Yeah. Slowly swim across the pool and then get shamed. Take number 40.
Oh man. Yeah, no. Oh gosh. It was so I really liked the way that, you know, because look, we've got gender issues, we got religious issues. You know what I mean? There's all this different stuff in here, but at no point is it like, this is bad and this is how you need to be. You were just looking at it through all these different prisms, which was, yeah, it was kind of realistic, right? That's how it would be. Because I think one thing that everyone forgets at times, right? If you've grown up in this environment where you're told this one thing, and I remember going to Sunday school as a kid, and you're told certain things in Sunday school. I mean, they're not mincing things, right? So you're getting told this one thing, then to find out, oh, my friend might not, that's gonna make you like wonder. And I think that is very well conveyed, right? Without, as I said, look, making anyone into a villain, or, they'd be like, ugh, I like that character, but now they're an asshole. We just didn't see that. It was just this really well kind of thought out kind of, thought process of, oh, how would I deal with this? How am I approaching this? What are my views now? Like, when you're writing that, right? How much did it change? Like, how, because I'm sure you write it the first time thinking, oh, have I got it? And then you look at it again and be like, no, it's probably skewed too much to a certain way. Like, how did you kind of work all of this out without it being this, vilification of a thought process?
Yeah, thanks for that observation. I definitely, I was, it's interesting because even though I'm not religious anymore, I know what it's like to, grow up very religious, and I know I remembered what what I sort of responded to in terms of media, and what was challenging for me and whatnot. And my friend group had a spectrum similar to the one in the film, where there were, religious people who were much more liberal and religious people who were much more conservative. And so I remembered the contradictions of that and the nuances of it. And I just thought it was something I hadn't really seen in a lot of films that sort of tackle religion, because usually, the religious character is really kind of cartoony, and then there's, it's, as you point out, it's very sort of black and white. And so I definitely wanted there to be a spectrum of sort of opinions on different sort of religious outviews. But the hardest part was actually, with the more conservative characters like Claire and Rose, was making them believable as the more sort of conservative end of the spectrum. And there's actually a scene in the movie that I had to cut out because when we were test screening it, people were like, I don't believe that would really happen. And it was a scene between Claire and Rose where Claire talks about the teddy bear, the teddy bear code that's going to happen in college, which is where your college roommate will put a teddy bear outside the door to indicate that they're having sex inside the room, so you shouldn't come inside.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. And so, and like Rose is horrified, and she's like, I have to transfer to get a private room. And, they both sort of commiserate about how horrifying this is going to be when they go to college, and, their roommates might be having sex. And these conversations really happened among my friend group, but it was one of those things where truth is stranger than fiction. And people watching the movie were like, oh, I think it's just over the top. Like, I think it's these two characters are too over the top in this scene. And so we took it out of the film. you know, to sort of balance them out a little bit more. So, you know, I guess to answer your question in a very long-winded way is it was kind of trial and error to figure out, you know, like with the volumes, okay, how religious is this person going to be, and you know, how liberal are they going to be and how conservative are they going to be, so that we don't lose audience members in having this kind of diverse representation of faith.
So I think that's an interesting thing, right? Because yeah, with test audiences, you know, because I know, like, look, it happens with films, you know, advanced copies of books. So there's always this thing, this call for feedback to make sure that, all right, does this translate? Do my ideas work, right? But the thing is, you're only going out to a key sphere of people. So how much of that do you go, that's interesting, but I don't think we need to change it? Or, okay, no, we'll make that change, knowing that although these people have reacted in this way, it might not necessarily be the mass reaction.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And it's hard, it's a difficult sort of process. And I feel like feedback, I feel like oftentimes for me, there's a separate camp for feedback where it's just a one-off and it's not something that you see or hear frequently. And then feedback where you're getting the same note repeatedly. And I feel like when I'm getting the same note repeatedly, I know that there's something there to work on. Whereas the sort of one-offs, I don't usually pay too much attention to those comments unless it sparks something in me that is exciting. You know, like sometimes people have, you know, it's just one person that makes a suggestion, and creatively it's like, oh yeah, that's such a great idea. Let's, you know, switch these two scenes around, or, you know, let's try this instead. But the majority of time, I just try to rely on aggregate, and you know, if you keep getting the same note many times, there's probably, you know, something there to massage. I know I definitely also have friends who are directors who are like, my way or the highway. And, you know, they may have some test screenings, but they pretty much ignore all the feedback that they get, and they just want the film to be their way. And you know, I appreciate that, you know, method of filmmaking, but I do feel like the editing process is one of the most interesting stages of making a movie. And I feel like it's the third time you write the film. So I feel like you write it on the script, and then you write it on set, and then the third time you write it in the editing room. And I think that there's so much creativity that can happen there, that I like having test screenings to find things that the editor and I maybe haven't thought about. So yeah. I'm more open to it than maybe some other filmmakers are, where they're like, this is my vision, don't mess with my vision. I don't care what you say about XYZ. So yeah. And then, you know, I guess there are some things that are swords that I was willing to fall on. Like the ending, you know, I think the ending maybe, you know, some people really want Gene to come out at the end of the movie, and I was like, that's not the movie I'm making. So
no, I thought the ending, I thought the ending worked. I really liked the way it ended, right? Because essentially most of them knew. Like most of them knew, just didn't care. And it was just like when Ali's just like, hey, I really like JD's friend, and she's like, yeah, me too. And it was just like that, you know, it didn't have to be said, and be like, yeah, and I think I'm gonna ask him out, and oh, by the way, Ellie, I'm gay. Be like, oh, really, Gene? I didn't know. Oh, guys, Gene's got something to tell us. Gene? Like, we didn't need anything like that.
I totally want to play your entire exchange to anyone that ever questions about the end of this movie. I'll be like, did you want this version instead? Right. And there's, text or subtext, which route do you want to go down? So I appreciate that you liked the subtext version.
Yeah, but there's so many other films that had that ending. Right, so it's not like it's not there, right? There's that film. If people want that film, that's been made. That's there. But not everyone's experience is the same. You know, so it's I think it's always good to see like these different things. Because I remember how clueless I was back in the day. Oh my God. I mean, do you know? Have you ever heard the expression, oh gosh, what is it? I think it's like a rainbow party or a Mars bar party.
Oh, yes. With the lollipop thing.
Yeah. Well,
yes.
Yeah. So like, my famous is like, I think they were doing stuff long before me. And so why don't someone, well, you think people, then you learn that just because people were saying shit didn't mean they were doing any of it, right? But I remember one time, he was just like, oh yeah, I think we're going to go to Fingers and we're going to have a Mars bar party. And I was like, oh my God, I like Mars bars. How come I don't go to a party? Like, I'd eat Mars bars. This is so unfair. I thought that was a Mars bar party. Kids having fun eating Mars bars.
It's so good. The innocence.
So yeah, I think it's nice to see films that, you know, show that different crop of kids that aren't necessarily just doing all the crazy stuff and all of that, you know.
I call them the late bloomers, and I have found that there's quite a few of them who were like me and just not doing what the cool kids were doing.
Because I think also I remember, because I used to go to Sunday school just because there was nothing happening on a Sunday back in the day. You know, shops weren't open. It was just done. It was like the Waltons in the morning, and that was it, right? There was nothing else happening. So you know, watch the Waltons, go to Sunday school, and there was a period of time, and I always thought, right, that there's, you know, what you're told there, like sex is important and it should be meaningful. So you're just like, all right, well, you know, I didn't really, I don't know, I never had a thing where it's just like, oh, you're bad for doing it. But I was thinking, you know what, I'd like to do it with the person that means the most, right? So I'm gonna wait until I get married. And I thought like that for a little while, right? But then you're just like, no, like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And so you change, but yeah, there's times when you realize there was a point of time where you had this certain thought process, right? And when you look back at it, you're just like, what was I thinking?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, obviously some of that is, you know, can be church, but I think a lot of it too can be, you know, your parents, and who's sort of raising you as well. And there's definitely lines in the movie that I wanted the kids to sound like they definitely were parroting whatever was being said around the house, you know. And I think that's also sort of an interesting part of forming your identity, is that, you know, you're trying not to be your parent, but then you also are taking them as a model of how to be an adult. And so you're saying the same things that they say, and you don't even know if you believe it or not, but you're just like, well, this is what you're supposed to do. And I think that you know, that time period is so interesting when you're forming your identity and you're expected to sort of declare who you are and what you like and what you don't like, and yet you're, you know, you're really kind of not even consciously parroting your church and your parents and the heavy influence in your school, you know, the heavy influences that are around you. So.
Yeah, you essentially, you're not even in the kiln yet, right? You're still on the friggin' wheel getting molded, right? You know, when you think about it, right? You just like, there's no glaze gone on, nothing, right? It's we're at that process of someone just pressing the button on the wheel and it's going around and be like, is it going to be this shape? Not quite sure. Let's see. But there's so much put on it, right? Especially now, right? So if you send out a tweet where you're dumb 16, that's gonna come bite you in the ass. But it's like you can't drink at that age. It's weird, right? You can't drink, but you can drive, right? You can have sex, but you can't vote. Like there's all these different weird things that you can and can't do. But everything you say, that was definitely everything that you feel and you believe in. And it's just like, no, like nothing is set here. It's all a melding pot of stupidness until it finally coalesces into the finished product, which even then isn't the finished product. Right,
yeah,
even once the bones have stopped growing and the brain has stopped, developing in a certain ways, you're still not finished. You're just
absolutely
solid. That's
yes.
it. You're a solid entity now, but that hard drive is always getting, updated.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's brilliantly said. And I love your point about the, you know, again, the contradictions of expecting to be an adult and not expecting to be an adult, and given, you know, as you point out, like given certain privileges and freedoms, and then certain ones are not allowed yet, and it's just such a liminal middle ground to sort of be in. It's ripe for drama.
Yes, it definitely is. This, am I correct? This is your first feature film, right?
Correct, yeah.
Your first goddamn feature film. It's sickening. It really is sickening. This is like,
thank you.
I was talking to Jessica Benahim, who directed Love Is a Hand Grenade. Right, the one thing I did notice, which is just, I think is super nice, right? That you go on social media and everyone that's at the fair, all you directors and writers and whatnot, you're all kind of like bigging up each other's stuff. And I'm just like, that's really nice, right? Because sometimes you see these things and it does feel like, this is me. I'm here. This is my wall, my silo. I'm here. You, right? But no, now it's just like, hey, I hope you well, big up with your stuff. And I like that. But yeah, I mean, I was speaking to her and I was just saying that what I thought was interesting about this Flare Festival, because I haven't really, this is the first Flare that I've covered properly. Because I've been doing the London Film Festival for the last, I think 3-4 years. And you usually get a few people maybe making their debut, or it's a second. But with this, there are so many feature films where it's the first one, and they're all so good. And you're just like, how the hell are you doing this on your first time? This is crazy, right? So how did you manage to like put it out at this level, right? Because I'm obviously, the more that you make, right, the more films that you make and the more that you write, you're going to be evolving and developing and getting even better, right? But to come out the gate so nuanced, right? Which definitely takes it takes an understanding, right? Because you have to then take in the feedback from others, right? But still have your, artistic integrity to be like, no, this is the vision, right? This is what I want this to be. And understand, okay, we're going to go with this angle for this shot, and we're going to start here and we're going to end there. Like, how did you gain that knowledge? Is it just through films and stuff that you've digested, being in rooms with other directors and writers? Like, what? Like, basically, how can I get this? How can I get this knowledge? How can I be you, Jonathan?
Oh, shucks. Yeah, so I mean, part of it is I've made many shorts, so shorts are a great.
Well, they're good for the summer, right? Because your legs get hot and
exactly.
you don't want to be like, hey, that's what we're talking about, right?
Keep you cool, yes. You get a good tan too. So yeah, no, I made a lot of short films, which obviously are great ways to sort of learn and build up to a feature. This is also not the first feature I've written, so this might be, I don't even know, the 8th or 9th or something, and all those other projects are not made. So I did, this is not my first screenplay, and so that also I think is helpful, is just in terms of that writing muscle was very alive. And then the third thing I think that's helpful is that I also teach film. I'm an adjunct professor at a couple of universities here in California, and so I think that there's something really helpful, at least for me, in terms of analyzing films for my students to sort of unpack and understand what's happening in a movie. It's kind of like I myself am also always learning, because I have to learn in order to teach. And that I feel it just keeps things fresh in terms of your kind of filmmaking skills. And so yeah, I feel like all of those things were experiences that sort of helped me make my first feature. But it's very, very, very flattering of you to say that it was a success as a first feature. I appreciate that.
No, I mean, I think you just look at the chatter online. I haven't seen anyone be like, Dramarama, more like Borarama. You know what I mean? Like, no one was saying anything bad about it. I mean, and I looked. I was like, guys, bit of a turkey, right? They're like, no, it was great. I'm like, God damn
it. No one took the turkey bait.
No. Damn those kids. But was there not the pressure though, right? Because if you're teaching it, right? You're teaching it, and you must have been in those classes where people would be like, ugh, that film's dreadful. I can't believe, what were they thinking? The dialogue wasn't even realistic, and the camera angle, it was all wrong. And you're thinking, oh my God, are they gonna do this to me? What are they gonna think of my film? Do I even tell them? Do I use a pseudonym? Like, is Jonathan Wysocki your real name? Do you teach under a different name? Is that what's going on?
Oh God, maybe I should now. Oh God. I mean, I do feel like, it's funny if a student will ever watch this and they'll be like, oh, now I know what's going on in his mind. I try to keep those worlds separate as much as possible. And I guess, I think part of it is because, like, I feel like they're two different things, being being a filmmaker and being a teacher are like separate worlds. And so I try to put on a different hat when I'm being a teacher. But, you know, I think to the end of like, you know, will they like this movie, will they tear it apart, whatever. Yes, that terrifies me, which is why I probably don't tell them. But I also feel like something I always have to remind myself is that I myself do not like every single film that has ever been made. And that's true of everybody, right? Film is subjective in terms of whether or not it's speaking to you or whether or not it's not speaking to you. And that can be like, it can be hard as a filmmaker when you put your heart and soul and time and blood, sweat, and tears into something, and then you put it out there and, you know, wonder whether or not people are going to rip it to shreds. But, you know, even the quote unquote greatest films of all time have people who were like, I don't know, you know, It's like, here's Lawrence of Arabia, or, you know, Singing in the Rain, or Sunset Boulevard, or whatever, Citizen Kane. People are like, wasn't for me, not so into it. So, you know, I just have to remind myself that film is subjective, and that the people who, you know, the people who will come to Dramarama will be the people who the film is for, if that makes sense. That, you know, films hopefully have a way to find the audiences who they're made for. So I just have to have faith in that.
Yeah. And with like, so it played at the BFI Flare, right? Which is a LGBT.
I know it keeps changing and getting longer.
It's so, I'm just like, what are the damn initials, man? But yes, it is, you know, it's one of those film festivals, right? Yes. And I always find there's this weird classification over films, right? So I'm curious to know what you think about all of that, because for me, I just think, like, is it a good story? So when people go, oh, this is a, you know, like, Do the Right Thing, people will go, best black films, you know, do the right, and we're like, why don't we just say best films, right? Why are we putting that in a category, going, oh, that's a best black film, rather than it's just a best film? And so you have films like yourself, you know, like oh gosh, which is like My First Summer, The Greenhouse, like all of these, Sweetheart, they're great films. And I don't necessarily feel that they need to be, you know, under this umbrella, because I mean, you worry that, is this going to hurt the film? Are people going to pigeonhole it under this rather than just look at it as a great film? You know, but you should be able to put this up with like the Superbads and the Junos and all the films that are dealing with that kind of age group, that kind of process of leaving school and getting into a new era of life, right?
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting topic you bring up, because it's something that, you know my fellow queer filmmakers have talked about this forever. We used to jokingly call it the gay ghetto, which was like, oh, here are these films over here, and you're in these festivals, and you have these audiences and these distributors, and you know, I think that there's something of value to give a voice to a marginalized community, but then, to your point, it also can be limiting, because it can also tell, you know, other people that, you know, this is niche, this is not really for you, this is only for this group. And, you know, I think that that's true for, you know, filmmakers of color and female filmmakers as well, where, you know, there are all of these different labs and programs and organizations and festivals that might cater to, you know, like just female filmmakers or just, you know, Asian filmmakers or whatever it may be. And I think that it's good to have those incubators to lift those voices up.
Yes.
But I think at the same time, to your point, the labels that then get put on those projects can also weigh them down.
Yeah, because as you said, look, those are all, I'm all behind those things. I'm all behind trying to give someone a hand up, right? Give people a voice to do something. But how do we then get those voices into just the general pool of voices?
Absolutely.
Right? Because like the one thing I find is you go to certain events, right? So we've got a place over here called the South Bank Centre, which is great. They show so many different diverse kind of performances and arts, right? But you sometimes go and beforehand, like someone will come up and they'll talk about what you're seeing that night or whatever. And you'd be like, oh yeah, so we're gonna be trying to, you know, do this. And it'd be like, what are we doing? Right? Because the people in here already agree with you. Like you don't have to make that speech because no one in this room is gonna go, I disagree. Put them back in the kitchen. You know what I mean? Like no one's gonna say anything. So it's just like, you know, with certain festivals, if it's a, you know, a black festival, a female festival, you know, a gay festival, you're only going to get the people that resonate with that content. You're like, it's yeah, I don't, get me wrong, I don't necessarily know all the answers, but it's always something that I've just thought about. Like, how do you change that? How do you then, you know, because you want to get, yes, you want to give these things a platform, but you want to get the people that might go, oh, I don't want to watch a film where a guy and a guy are holding hands. You know, where if they watch a film, they'd be like, that's a great film. Right? Yes, Dum Dum, it was a great film. Right? The holding hands is nothing. It's not even a byproduct of the film. It's just these two people. Right? But when someone actually watches it, they're like, I really enjoyed that. But how do you get them to just sit down and go down watch it? You know,
no, it's such a good point. Yeah. And I you know, I feel like that is a gatekeeper's question, right? That is a question for the gatekeepers at you know, non-niche distributors and non-niche, you know, production executives and whatnot that are, you know, that are not like that are, you know, sort of thinking in a world where they're not putting labels on things. If we can sort of break into that sector and not have a label put on the product, I think that's, you know, that's sort of how that change happens. I mean, you know, here in the United States, there's February is Black History Month, which I think Chris Rock jokes is, you know, it's like, oh yeah, thanks for giving us the shortest month of the year. But you know, I think the question is why isn't Black history just part of history?
Yes.
Like,
well, yeah.
Like, why is it Black history? Because
right after it.
And it's
right?
Exactly. And it's like, does that mean only women should pay attention that month? And then, you know, it brings up, I understand the intentions in terms of why it was done.
Yeah.
But I don't think it actually fixes what needs to happen, which is that all these other voices just need to be normalized as part of history or as part of film or as part of whatever. It's just, you know, I think Do the Right Thing is a great example. It's not a great piece of Black cinema. It's a great piece of cinema, period. It's one of the greatest films ever made. And it's you know, it's just hard for the gatekeepers to see it as something that doesn't have that niche label on it, and to convince them that it's not niche. It doesn't have to be niche.
Yeah, because you get those, because you speak to people and it's like, it's hard to get funding to make this and hard to do this. And it will be, right? Because people, it's easy to go, I mean, yes, we realize, Jonathan, people enjoyed your film, but how many people attended Flare? Right? I mean, like, Flare had 20,000 people, but if you're at a big festival, if you're at South by Southwest, that had 100 million people. So, how can I distribute? How can I put my funding behind your film when obviously it's not getting the same amount of? And you're like, well, that's fair, but did you let me play at South by Southwest?
Yes.
Right?
No.
So unless you let me into that room, how do you actually know how many people are going to watch my thing? Right? And I think that's the thing. And because Black Panther was one of the biggest grossing films. And for all those years, I don't know if we can have a black lead. I don't know if that sells. When Blade was the film that pretty much launched this whole superhero thing, right? That was the one. And yes, I understand we had Batman and a few things before it, but I feel Blade was the one that kind of mixed things up. Right, used bullet time before the Matrix used bullet time, right? Made it this dark, weird, crazy film. And then we have this huge now superhero genre, right? But for all those years, black films don't sell. Like, female-led films don't sell. Yeah. And we have seen that is a lie, right? Yeah. And it comes down to the fact that if we have great stories, people will go to check them out, right? So when are we changing this? Because we can create all of these different initiatives and we can go, oh, we're going to put funding into this and we're going to do this. But unless you change the distribution model that's actually in place, these initiatives don't mean anything.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, the gatekeepers have to change. They can't be the same. They can't be the same gatekeepers as we've had.
Yeah, I realized I just brought the tone down, Jonathan. We're talking about your happy ass film, and I'm just like, boom.
You're like, how do we change the world? I feel like that's a good thing. I know it's a heavy question, but I feel like it's a good thing. I love it.
So after a successful, because I feel it was a successful film festival.
It was, yeah.
What happens now? I mean, I saw that you won, oh gosh, was it best drama at the Oxford Film Festival?
Yes, yeah.
Which I originally, I have to say, right? I feel I need to point this out because I thought Oxford, England, and I was like, oh, I didn't know Oxford, and then I'm like, Oxford, America. No, hey, caveat, people. Change the name of your fair. Be like the US Oxford Film Fair. Do that. Do like something. What are we doing here? Right?
I know there are so many cities in the States as well that have the exact same name as a European. I mean, they're one of the great Wim Wenders films, Paris, Texas. It's like, yep, there's a city in Texas called Paris, and I guarantee you it's nothing like Paris, France. Yeah, so up next, like, we have more festival screenings here in the US, a couple of invitations internationally that I can't disclose yet. And then I've definitely had distributors in the UK reach out about UK distribution. So I feel pretty confident that, anyone who missed the film at Flare will eventually be able to see Dramarama in the UK, which is exciting.
Superb. But yeah, I feel that's always the weird one, right? You go to a festival, you watch all these great films, and you tell people, be like, oh my god, I saw this great film. They're like, oh, where can I watch it? I don't know.
Yes.
I'm not quite. I don't think they got distribution here yet. Oh, I'll get back to you when I know. But yeah, it's always weird, right? There's that weird period of time. And then sometimes 2 years later, you'll be like, oh, it's on Netflix now. And you're like, oh, I saw that thingy. You're like, oh, awesome.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because I mean, in many ways, that's one of the big values of film festivals, right? Is that so many of the films that are shown don't have distribution yet. And so if you really love film, you know, you get to see it first and you get to champion it and you get to, you know, you get to sort of find the gems that you think are worthwhile before distributors have gotten on board, which I think is a really great value of film festivals.
Yeah, oh my god, I've seen so many. Like I remember, gosh, I want to say it's 2 years ago at London Film Festival. There's a film called Princess Sid, which
Oh
was
yeah.
phenomenal. It was phenomenal. I was so glad. And the crazy thing was, because I was ill. I was ill during the festival, and I had a ticket, and I was just like, all just like, "Argh," and I went, and I got my times missed, and I missed it. I missed it, and I was so gutted. But it was showing the next day, and I got a ticket, and I went and saw it the next day, and blown away. It was incredible. But
it's such a great movie.
yeah, you get to see those little gems.
Mm.
I remember there was a film about Blaze Foley called Blaze, which, whew, so good, but just, man, really takes you through the racker. Right? But you get to see all of these things at festivals. But you know, you hear about at Cannes, right, that they have this whole thing, and you know, it's full of like, you know, Sony and MGM and Netflix and Amazon, and you go and you take your film and you'd be like, hey, do you want to buy my film? And like, so what is that process, right? So I'm assuming there's similar things at other festivals. Do you approach the distributor, or do they come find you? Like, what happens?
Yeah, so I mean, there's either you reach out to the distributor reaches out to you, or most commonly, a lot of films have sales agents. And those sales agents are the ones that are going to Cannes, they're going to EFM at the Berlinale, they're going to Toronto for the Toronto Film Festival. And they're making deals basically on your behalf, and then they take a percentage of those deals. So you know, when you're a low budget filmmaker, you usually get more out of it if you don't have a sales agent. But if you're not familiar with a market, a sales agent is really great because they will have relationships that you don't have. So it really kind of depends on what your network is, and whether or not you know, there are regions and territories where a sales agent might actually be able to do much more than you could do by yourself.
And do you think there will be a point where people just skip that, right, and just have it on your website, and people will just pay money to watch it there, rather than Netflix, Amazon, and that money's just you, without having to get chopped up between all these other people's?
A lot of indie filmmakers in the US are doing that. They're you know, they're kind of fed up by the options that are out there and how little they make off of those different options. And yeah, they're just putting it up themselves on Vimeo, you know, or YouTube behind a paywall or whatnot. I think the challenge with that route is that you then have to make sure that people know that your film is out there. And so you're working on a lot of marketing to point people to that product, right? Whereas, it on some of these other platforms, like people will come across it because they know that platform. They know iTunes, they know Amazon, or whatever it may be. But I think, distribution was definitely, at least here in the US, was definitely quite broken before the pandemic. And I think the pandemic has really highlighted how broken it was. And there's a lot of conversations people are having about whether or not they want to go back to that same system that didn't seem to really work in favor for the filmmakers. So yeah, it's an interesting time, particularly for independent cinema. And the good side, as you're pointing out, is that you can self-distribute, which you didn't used to be able to do. You couldn't just have someone from the other side of the world watch your movie on your own website, and now you can.
Yeah, it does seem like it could be entering that period that comic books hit, right? When Image Comics came up and gave like people a different alternative to the big organizations. It was like time for the indies to shine. And it's like, oh, is this gonna happen with film now? Which could be very interesting.
It could be, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Jonathan. Oh, this has been great. I really
thank you so much, Kevin.
Yeah, talking with you about this. But actually, there's one thing I was wondering, right? So you went to you did the drama thing, right? So you're a drama kid growing up. Now film, right? Why film and not the stage?
Yeah, it's a good question.
You sell out? Is that
what
we're finding out?
I'm not a sellout. I made a movie about drama. Yeah, no, I love the theater. I continue to love the theater. There was a certain point when I was in uni where I was writing plays, and I actually had a professor read one of my plays and was like, this is too big for the stage. You seem to be in a more cinematic space than a theatrical space. And that kind of opened my mind up to, looking into transitioning. And I did. And, I feel like the plus side is I'm able to bring a lot of the things I love about theater, including working with actors, to filmmaking. But I have this funny feeling that at some point in my life, I'm going to go back to the stage. I don't know what it is, but I feel like I'm going to burn out on film at some point, and I will return to the theater. So we will see. But I love them both equally, and I don't want to look like a sellout. Says the
parent to their two kids.
Exactly.
Honestly, I don't believe the same to me.
I know I'm not paying attention to you right now, but it doesn't mean I don't love you.
Like, was there though? There's one thing I've noticed, right? Sometimes when you see an adaptation from like a play to the screen, that sometimes it just still feels like a play rather than a film, right? So how did you kind of rejig the voice?
Yeah, I feel like some of that is I think that this stage allows for a certain theatricality of language and dialogue that film does not. Film wants people to sound as much like natural talking as possible. And I think that the stage allows for a certain poetic nature to dialogue. Like I don't know if you saw Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which uh, it's amazing, and the August Wilson play is amazing. But it's I feel like it's, when you watch it as a movie, it is a little heightened. Like there's something about those lines in film that, to me at least, feels a little more heightened, whereas on the stage you don't really think about that, because I think you have a different suspension of disbelief when you're watching a play than from when you're watching a film. So yeah, I would say that in that transition, I try to pay attention to how people speak as much as possible when I'm writing dialogue for film, in terms of making it as less theatrical than the stage does.
Yeah, I think that makes, but sometimes, there is that need in a film to be
theatrical.
Yes. you need those moments,
Yes.
Like, I think, when like Maximus is like, are you not entertained?
Right.
If you like, guys, are you not entertained?
Right.
Are we not here to have a good time? Like, it would have been a completely different scene. So yeah, I know it's always an interesting. It's always interesting when you see that. But yeah, Marie's Black Bottom was just, there was an energy to that film.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there was such an energy and a flow to the lyrics and everything like that. It was just like, ooh, right? And
yeah, it's honest. I mean, to me, it's almost like listening to poetry. Like it's on a different level in terms of how the dialogue works.
Yeah, there was like, this kind of funk to it. And I think another film that felt like that for me was The Tangle, right? There was this lyricism to the words, and it was just the way it all flowed and connected. You're just like, oh, that's different, right? Because you then, by changing, the way people talk, the patterns and everything like that, you are able to put a spin on a genre that, everyone knows this genre, but just this little tweak makes it new again, makes it fresh, and it becomes interesting. So it's always fun when you can take different, I think, understandings of voice and play with them. So I guess that's what a theatre background can help you with. So is there another project that you're going to be thinking about once all of this dies down?
Yeah, I have a bigger project that I had written prior to Dramarama. It's a historical drama based off of the first AIDS ward in the world, which was at San Francisco General Hospital in the early 1980s. And it was a ward that the gay and lesbian nurses ran themselves, kind of carte blanche, because the hospital didn't want anything to do with all of these patients. And so it's a little bit like, the tone is a little bit like MASH, because there's actually a lot of humor and joy that these patients and nurses had, because they were from the same community, basically. But also obviously there's the heaviness of what was happening in the situation, and the tragedy of it. And that kind of combination, I think, is really interesting to me. And so I have a script based off of that is I'm working on next.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, well, that'll be an interesting thing to see. Because I mean, that's a different. I was just trying to think. Have we? I don't think we've seen anything kind of looking at that kind of aspect of things, right? We've had Stonewall and Philadelphia. You know, I mean, films that deal with like that side of things, but nothing from that. And I didn't even know, like the first, Ward was in San Francisco.
Yeah, and there's something about, I think, something that is maybe more timely now than it was when I started it, is that there seems to be more awareness of healthcare workers,
Mm,
obviously because of the pandemic and what the lives of healthcare workers are like. And I think that it just might be, interestingly enough, even more timely to sort of shed a light on the past, in terms of this virus that nobody understood and everyone
yes.
was freaked out about, and the front line were, the healthcare workers. And so there's perhaps something even more relevant, um, now than when I first started that project.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. Oh man. Oh yeah. Hey, good luck with that.
Thank you.
I'm definitely, I'm interested to see how that one goes. So
Thank you.
once it's up and running, you have to come back and tell us about it.
All right. I would be delighted to.
Awesome. No, again, I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate the fact that you know what I mean, because like you do these things, right? You go to these festivals or you watch films and you reach out to people and be like, hey, would you like maybe a conversation? And not everyone gets back to you, and straight away you're just like, yeah, sure, why not? And so
Oh,
I,
really?
I I appreciate that, man. Thank
Oh,
you very
sure.
much.
Yeah, no, my honor. Thank you so much.
Cool. Well, yeah, where's the next festival people can see you at potentially?
The next festival is, well, actually, here in the US, it will be online with the Oxford Film Festival. That is geo-blocked to Mississippi, Louisiana, and Tennessee. So again, another weird thing of online festivals is all the geo-blocking and
Yeah.
all of that stuff. So that will be the next one.
Okay. So people, if you're in that area, or maybe you just moved there for a couple of weeks so you can watch some films. You know what I mean?
Why
Whatever
not?
works. You know what I mean?
People have done stranger things.
But yeah, definitely go check out Dramarama because hey, it's not just yeah. I mean, every element was great. You know, it's
Thank
not
you.
just the writing, the direction, but the cast killed it. Cast killed
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean? Like the costumes, like every department stepped up to the place and hit a home run. So hey, well done to you and your team, man, because
Thank
yeah,
you. I'm very proud of
it was a
them.
great film.
Thank you.
Cool, man. Well, yes, thank you for your time. And yeah, looking forward to the next time we get to yeah, shoot the shit and talk film and whatnot.
Awesome. Take care.
Cool. All right, Jonathan. Thank you.